Howdy to anyone joining me. Probably no one just yet, but I have some poems to share on this Veterans Day, and I figure what I'll do is start out with a short story, and then if anybody joins, that's cool. If nobody joins, that's cool too. There'll be a recording, and we'll have a good Veterans Day all the same. So, the short story that I'm going to be sharing to start off is entitled Duck Bomb. It's a something I've been working on for a while, and everything I'm going to be sharing today is basically anti-war and has to do with my veteran experience. And also Free Palestine. And as the poet Tongo Martin Ellison says, stay in the streets for Sudan, stay in the streets for Palestine, just stay in the streets. Duck Bomb. A fire broke out backstage in a theater. The clown came out to warn the public. They thought it was a joke and applauded. He repeated it. The acclaim was even greater. I think that's just how the world will come to an end. The general applause from those wits who believe it's a joke. A quote from Soren Kierkegaard. Even though it's not my job to be Rambo, everybody has to stand Rambo shipyard watch every once in a while. Rambo because it necessitated a Mossberg shotgun and a 9mm and a baton. She keeps threatening to rain, I say to the master at arms as he assists me putting it on my Kevlar jacket. Threatening, more like she's promising. There was a gun safe in my parents' bedroom, but we never had any guns. My father had bought it from a client of his. It was too big for the closet, but he kept it on the back porch. We used to store documents. Some neighborhood kids stole the safe because they thought there was an armory in it. As soon as I'm strapped in, I'm heading to the bathrooms to pose in front of the mirror. I perceived myself as James Bond, but resemble De Niro in Taxi Driver. The image of myself in the mirror holding the 9mm conspires to follow me out of the bathroom. Encroachment of male powerlessness. I will think of myself in the mirror. How dangerously unfamiliar, disorientingly powerful. Not myself anymore. There are things we don't talk about when it comes to social media and the modern military. In a nutshell, suddenly you find yourself with MySpace friends taking gun selfies, father and son gun selfies, or just plain old pictures of guns. Good order and discipline is only threatened by political correctness, not gun selfies. Generally, this looks like an erect male holding a handgun at chest level, pointed to the sky just above the head, staring just left or right of the cameraman. Kevlar is never comfortable. I feel like a stuffed sausage, vest packed under my working blues. There should never be any reason to tamper with the outfit they put on you in the armory. Most importantly, the safety is on. You can be sure of that. Yet I am never sure of that. When I went to check, while I want to check if it's on all the time, whether I accidentally displaced it or it jostled loose in my head, I had already tampered with it when I was in the bathroom taking mind selfies of myself with the gun, tampering with the button that opens the door between life and death. I, the underground man, now have a gun self, or it has me. It's so disorienting to a non gun self to need to have a gun self. And since you have no ownership of it, it begins to have a life of its own. My gun self is able to deal with the unknown fear that I don't even know enough to be afraid of the unknown. Making my way to the quarterdeck, I salute the officer of the deck. I don't hate officers. I'm allergic to khaki uniforms. I am jealous. Some of them only have business and administrative degrees. I guess it makes sense since the ship is a floating office building. I make my way down to the metal stairs and onto the dock, the icy wind on my face almost immediately starts to frost. Yesterday, the bomb robot was deployed. One of the shipyard workers left their lunch on the dock and forgot it. The debacle lasted over 4 hours. Outside of the logistics of the whole operation, the dock had to be cleared completely, and the shipyard work had to stop. The quarterdeck was secured, and no one could get off or on the ship. Boy, is it cold. Only now am I getting the full effect. The cold air holds my hand and leads me down the wooden planks of the pier. I imagine I am playing xylophone with my government issued boots. I make my way to the end of the pier to the watch station. There's also a bathroom at the station where I withdraw my weapon and check myself out in the mirror once more. How do people that have to carry guns or conceal weapons all the time do it? There's an implied power so intoxicating, so hard to hide from yourself, let alone others. I visually check the safety, fearing the tactile check might lead to a finger slip. When I walk back out and assume my watch, stuffed like a sausage with Kevlar, I notice a duck that appears to be frozen in the water at 20 degrees Fahrenheit. I would expect that the duck would freeze. Was he moving? No. No. Wait, a little? Nope. My long raincoat has a detachable government issued lining attached. I wear a beanie double wrapped at the rim. I am the coldest in the world. I can't figure out whether the duck is alive or dead. Small 1.5 foot waves lick lips and laps against the pier. The ocean sucks the duck back and spits him out against the pier. Still, the duck does not move, does not quack, does not flutter in its tail in frustration. I cannot shake the feeling that there is something alive inside of it, some potential action that, when realized, will unpack a message. Self image of myself strapped with weapons weighs heavy on my perception of the duck. Is the duck the enemy? Is the enemy dead? Were the dead full of messages? The ship had its own television station. The executive officer gave a public service announcement last week. While it is tempting to create lists in our mind and manage our personal administration while on watch, that does not qualify as good watch standing. The watch requires your full attention. Nothing should be creeping in your perception of the perimeter. Safe, safely, professionally, and on time. I am fully aware of the duck. I am convinced of its explosiveness. The space between certainty and uncertainty has become uncomfortable. He has become jagged and prickly in the lacuna of an electrical connection between neurons. And while certainty has become relief from the heft of the middle ground, it also reveals a bigger problem. Do I risk looking like a fool reporting this to the watch captain at the cost of the possibility of my shipmates being lost to what might lie dormant in the belly of the duck? These stakes, while not tangible, inform my awakeness. I am counting the sequence of peripherals: duck, 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 goose. There is a horizon, and at least there will be for a little while longer. The duck is in the wells of my eyes, surrounded by floating trash, darkness ascending, focusing on the center while staying aware that there is a line that divides space, and later it gets less pronounced. That line is. Counterintuitively, the cold makes everything less shiny. Ice is dull and dirty from 200 yards. Maybe the duck is both alive and dead, just like Schrodinger's cat. If Islam is the best interpretation of Abrahamic religions, the duck definitely works for Al Qaeda. The duck was alienated from an enlightened caliphate outside of Sharia law. What if they are right? What if we are not living up to God's law in the West? We are about to park this nuclear powered aircraft carrier of drunk sailors next to minarets. In boot camp, we wore sweatpants for the first month. The sweatsuit that and recruit ball cap was meant to signify that we were not yet in the fleet. They called the sweatsuit Smurfs. Smurfs knew that our enemies in the Middle East did not drink or smoke, but they couldn't wait to have a drink or smoke. Marching in formation, nothing was rounded, squaring corners to make turns carefully, to only look around by moving eyeballs, never the whole head. While at attention, in formation, mosquitoes would land to feast on our necks. We had to let them eat. I wonder if the Chinese boys were aware of themselves as they march in unison. They probably didn't even have the same attention to detail. The North Korean boys keep it tight, maybe because they are scared, or maybe not. I do not remember. I do. I had to remember not to square corners, to sharpen my 45-degree hospital corners, to crease my shirts, to shine my boots, to remember my place, to never forget rank, to salute or never to salute, to wear hats, to not wear hats. Hats were very important. As we crisscross applesauce for an multi-division commander who was wearing in his ear, Senior Chief was allowed this earring in uniform because he had been lost at sea. This is what he told us anyway. How many of you joined the Navy to get money for college? Immeasurable amounts of hands raised themselves while bodies underneath, cross-legged, thoughtless. How many of you joined the Navy because you wanted to see the world? Even more hands were raised with enthusiasm. The recruits getting excited. The senior chief seemed to be holding a pep rally. Silence fell, giving the senior chief room to talk once again. He inhaled fresh breath and began to scream. I joined the Navy to go to war. The instruments you will yield, including a floating vessels, are instruments of war. We are killers. We drop warheads on foreheads. We park small, well-armed cities outside of foreign nations. And while we endorse democracy, we do not practice it. The room was decapitated. Most of the demographic were under 20, and of that, very few of them had ever been yelled at before. What scares me the most of all is watching those thousands of Chinese march together in holy unison. No individuals, no looky-loos, no rubbernecks. If you get a chance, listen to the radio traffic in Muslim countries. There's no rock music, no zoo radio, no car talk, just prayer and civilian chatter about prayer. Listen to the chatter of your generation. It's like listening to birds squawking. Vigilance is paramount to mission readiness. The Navy is not looking to share your attention with anyone or anything, especially when you're standing watch. Watch is not only a time that the United States Navy pays you for, but also your sworn duty. And if you do not perform this duty, you will face court-martial. That was the only time the senior chief spoke directly to us. While the Navy wanted to utilize the awareness of watchstanders, it did not authorize being aware outside of watchstanding and mission readiness. I've been staring at the duck for a while. I'm not sure if I am thinking clearly. I am sure that at this moment, while I was thinking clearly before, but not now, not at this moment, but I can tell you what kind of duck it is. My guess is that it could be some regular duck and not one of those Audubon ducks. By expecting the worst and searching the far recesses of my mind, I can imagine how it could be possible to make it and disguise it as a duck. The duck is not moving. I definitely kept my eye on it for an hour without blinking. It has not moved. If the duck is not alive, then it can only be one of two things: a frozen duck or a bomb made to look like a duck. My sanity is a question mark in a thought bubble. My questions pose themselves on the backdrop of possible social death. What if they discover me as a bug who fabricates explosive devices? That is exactly what Al Qaeda wants me to think that I thought. What if they anticipated that I would be thinking that they would think that I am thinking they would have thought? I doubt they would have thought past refraction. It's like the speed of sound, unbreakable by ordinary means. We as humans couldn't run there. We would need some sort of vessel. The wiring and circuitry of the possible device spins like posy. The craftsman could have thought of what I thought and what I'm doubting myself right now, afraid to face ridicule at the hands of my shipmates who I could be saving by facing my shame. The matter of the duck comes to mind, and if the duck doesn't matter, then I better be minding the duck. If it wakes up at the end of my watch and I've spent this time thinking about it, I'm going to be very upset. I'm aware, even in the moment, of ridiculousness of what I'm perceiving. But an 8-hour watch can do wonders to the mind. Things that compel attention oftentimes devalue perception in an expectancy of the novel. Cheap clusters of thoughts that obscure an itching fear of death, conspicuously consuming hours and minutes and seconds. Death by duck bomb is just ridiculous enough to excuse my fear of social reprisal. How absurd it would be to die in such a way, and even more absurd to have realized that you were going to die in an absurd way before the act. My death will be absurd and not theirs. Or perhaps it's the other way around because there's no way they could have known. My shipmates have no idea what could possibly be in store for them if the duck doesn't wake up before the watch is over. I'm rooting for the duck now, praying for him because he could be dead, and that would be a shame. He could be both dead and a bomb, devaluing the shame of death. One drop of rain turns into two, and quickly turns into 1 million. It starts to rain as she promised. And now off the duck moves. I can't be sure if it's not the rain moving the duck. There's no way that the duck is alive. I look out at the duck in the water, drowning in its vulnerability. That has to be a dead duck. But we could all be sitting ducks, waiting for some inevitable absurd death. Not even death, something too obscure and absurd that it never ends. An explosion constructed of words that shatters time, revealing a sign. My watch was about to come to an end, and I still don't know if the duck is a bomb. How can I know if it is a bomb if it doesn't go off? If trees fall into the woods and woodchucks don't hear them, have I quacked up? I'm kneeling naked before the system. A sign, fro duck, before I go. Nothing. As I climb the metal stairs to the ship, the safety comes loose. Being Rambo is not a job. The Mossberg shotgun and the 9mm and the baton and the duck and the ship and this war and the bomb robots. Allahu Akbar. Oh, Captain, my Captain. And that was Duck Bomb. Hi, everybody who made it. Uh, so glad you could make it on this Veterans Day, where I plan on reading some anti-war poems. And once again, for my introduction, Free Palestine. I am trying out this technology called Restream. Shout out to Restream, where I'm able to stream at multiple platforms at once. It's the first time I'm live streaming at all. But let's continue. Thank you all for joining me. My next poem is entitled Child at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. And I went to the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier a couple of times when I was a kid. And I had this idea at some point of writing an essay, and the essay became a poem. And One thing I do have to say before I read it is that Powmia, that's Powmia, is propaganda, and that kind of enters into the poem at some point. So this idea of people missing in action, or the idea that communists are still keeping people in prison somewhere in Vietnam, that's what Powmia is based around, is just some sort of weird government propaganda and not true. But again, a child at the tomb of the unknown soldier. You can stop that. Thank you. Being born in angst lends fodder to crusades. Better to be unknown as fragmentary proxy pieces of Homer's body than to be yourself. Back in the cave, Plato and Socrates demanding blithe explanation from Diotima. It is about what is good for rando humans. Socrates, a soldier, Peloponnesian War, probably had PTSD and or epiphany. Child's sources known to be born of war and circumstance, branded guilt complex for episodic fortune, beginning to cut. Then there's the shame of being sliced by expectation. Buying Palmia t-shirt, ritualistically tattooing the guilt. Dog tags are meant to be jammed in a body's teeth with a boot to mark neurotypical Bible names. Data to identify through personalities cults where selves are shadows of the human's state, sewn like Peter Pan's first rendezvous with Wendy in the London fog. After systems are done with you, nothing is left but a plaque. When there is a body to claim, your body's remaining fictitious facts, all flags are symbolic of war, symbiotic with violent demonic pride. All war memorials celebrate war. The named are sequential becoming, parts of a larger book where their names came from originally. War simulacra, pyrotechnics, Grateful Dead, and Hell's Angels. War can create nothing but suffering. Weapons create nothing but death. Child, escorted by their sources, demanding explanation from monument. These are fighters who perceived, but nobody cared about them. People want to be loved, but they can't stomach loving. Shiny boots, buckles, pompous hats, the changing of the guard. Protecting sacred anonymity from fragile personhood. Unmarked grave would prefer to denote armistice than Memorial Day. Uniforms are clown costumes in rando humans' dark closets. Thank you. Thank you again, everyone, for joining. Shout out to Veterans for Peace. My next poem is it's called WOBS, and it's about the IWW, the International Workers of the World, which after World War One they protested. After protesting World War One, they also protested World War Two, and a lot of them were imprisoned. And yeah, what else do I have to say about the WOBS before I say this poem? I marched with some international workers of the world during the protests around Occupy in New York City. I can say that proudly, and I learned some songs from them. I also support them strongly. Happy Veterans Day. what they wouldn't do to stop us. We didn't know that armed scabs would shoot unpaid organizers and unskilled labor. Red was a dangerous color. French sabot, wooden shoe thrown in the machinery by tired workers, sabot cat screeching, "General strike!" Sabotage is necessary, conscious withholding efficiency, singing songs of ourselves. Chorus ceases surely as it don't. Gunmetal drowning ditties, philosophy experiments Kafka had no intention of publishing. Choked by his father's voice, red was a dangerous color. War fever upon us again. Please take us to prison too. Red Union card entitles us to lodging for 2 to 14 years. San Quentin or Folsom. Father of the ethical socialist movement, is Walt Whitman in the wobbly grammar books for immigrants. His voice echoing Little Red Songbook. Centralia Friction, 1919 Settler Vision. Salvation Army Foreign Legion. Fallen IWW anti-war veterans. Red is a dangerous color. The world celebrates armistice. Memorial Day singing their framing. Red paint for blood. We were living in the wrong country, but then we crooned wob songs. Thank you very much. My next poem is entitled Homegoing. Um, Another time, another war, about my grandmother. Uh, they raised me on folk history of Ukraine and pogroms, Bolsheviks and Russians, Ukrainians and Nazis, Ukrainians and Soviets, flight to Poland, fighting imperiled, constant flight only, storied occupation and flight. I am not from Ukraine. That is just a tall tale. It is built on top of my homeland. Lvov before it was Lviv. Not here to argue about old borders. Mind on the front lines with the folk wheat, ghost of memory. Kalishnikov's butt end meets grandfather's forehead. But that was later. Not my memory either. Nazi collaborators. Lvov. My grandmother lived with parents. Polish Lithuanian city. Jews and Poles. Before pogroms, after Bolsheviks. I'm trying to let go of hereditary memory. Everything taken by the Soviets after the Germans lost, and the West gave the Poles as a parting gift to Stalin. Rudolf Weigel tied boxes of lice to the legs of a teen girl that was my grandmother for extra rations for the occupiers, for her platelets that were now immune to typhoid. Some of her platelets were smuggled into concentration camps by the resistance after the Bolsheviks. Some of her platelets were smuggled for vaccinations in ghettos, made lice blood paste, louse feeder, avoided camps. Lice fought over landscape of skin. The Germans spread propaganda linking Bolsheviks and Jews. Ukrainians collaborated with Nazis. Stepan Bandera organizing students at the Polytechnic. Genocide starts on college campuses where students round up Polish and Jewish professors with bachelor hands. Bandera craved sovereignty. Polish interior minister assassination. Banderistas will come and get you. Stuff of stories told to children. Stories told to scared children, like my father at the orphanage. I have learned to forgive Ukrainians. When the Soviets came, they lived in my grandfather's home, in my grandfather's family home, with their feet weighted on handcrafted furniture where bourgeois teacups used to sit, now replaced by vodka and boot tread sullied with earth. They hunted down Bandera. I have learned to love the bomb and not hate all Russians. Thank you. I spilled some water on myself. Thank you very much. Thank you all for joining. Um, Happy Veterans Day once again. I'll just move on to my next poem. My next poem is called Mine. Briefly touches on a current topic, but essentially, um, the Ottawa Treaty is the treaty against the usage of mines. They should be outlawed. A big holdout for the Ottawa Treaty are the Americans, and this has been true for a long time. And well, I'll just read the poem. The same year I was born, my godmother's son died from an unexploded mine he found while playing. 1978, year of our mine, World War II deposit. He was 16. That detail irrelevant, adjacent to my 0 years. Unstable, attractive nuisance. Stakes of childhood. Detonate juveniles in Vietnam and Korea. Unexploded American privilege, where most mines are manufactured. Manichean mad bombers distributing presents, quality made in the US of A. They made me watch the Iraq invasion at church camp. Appendages fly apart from torso incongruously. Cowboys refuse Ottawa Treaty, having monopoly on violence. In 1978, Karol Wojtyła became pope. To not save boy, fishing mine, to not speak for sex abuse victims, to be canonized by the church. In the castle of the Jews, where John the Baptist christened Jesus, border of Israel and Jordan, 1968, Mideast War, ordnance planted during Six-Day War when Jordan lost the castle. West Bank mines were cleared. 2018, making way for tourism. Last war waged on hollow ground, not in Iraq, Garden of Eden fame, just below the surface, undisturbed, interfaith, potential, issuing safety. Thank you. My next poem is entitled Underway Replenishment. It took me a long time of dwelling on this memory in this poem, so I hope you like it. It comes from underway. The idea of underway replenishment can be both done with ships and airplanes, but essentially it's transferring cargo and fuel from one vessel to another. And I witnessed these dolphins with us on one particular detail I was assigned to, and they just kind of rode the bow of the ship forever, and just staring at them, I knew it meant something. Does it? I mean, I got a poem out of it 20 years later, 15 years later, so that's what it means. Underway replenishment. Dolphins know no real difference. Warships and peace, leaping on bow, connected to oiler. Birds probably don't trollop planes when they exchange information at altitudes above us. Girl next to me has dolphin tattoo on ankle, combining activities of two ships companies. Six or seven dancing blue noses straddle the bows, axial maneuvering, impression of vessels, memory primordial. Motion capitulates abruptly, arc trajectory sameness. We are just self portraits. Ship is society. We are faced with how hard it is to disappear below decks, to keep secrets. Perfect shape, just forward lines of teardrop, must be hopped up on pufferfish or something. Thank you. Um, my next poem is called The Draft. Um, and what can I say about the draft? I've met a lot of people. I met a lot of people from the Vietnam era since I became involved in activism in like 2009, 2010, who were drafted or who watched who watched a large percentage of their graduating class disappear, and what that's like as a phenomenon. So again, this is probably something I was writing for a while, and then it kind of just came together one day. And I'm obviously against the draft, but I don't think that the way that the way that we recruit right now is very honest either. We uh, basically the idea of recruiting from high schools especially is very immoral. But in a capitalist country such as this one, um, the military ends up being the only social program there is, and so yeah, in a lot of ways, the system we have right now is worse than the draft. And those kids in Kansas, they don't stand a chance against those recruiters. All right, even though they've never seen the ocean, they end up in the Navy somehow. The draft. After Pontic Anatolian expulsion, grandfather Stelios was conscripted at gunpoint into Panorama of Luck. In the wake of Greek civil war in Luban, my grandmother from Goral region, whose father slaughtered by German soldiers in streets, wheelbarrow on Lord's dirt, commie poles move mountain avoiding draft. Breaking a bottle with finger inside, how many pounds of pressure break arm? Anointing slab of skin with acid, feigning madness, pretending to be gay, avoiding discerning meat grinders. My neighbors in Greece, Arek, served 9 month sentence in communist mental facility, scrubbing pool, hyper clean crystalline waters, deceiving him into diving into drained cement, cracking skull, his only desire to continue being, to not go to war. Navy recruiters in Kansas tell lies to 18-year-olds who have never seen the ocean. Top Gun 2 playing audiences. War has changed me. I love deserters. Most get there and then flee, living amid enemies, Vietnamese rice paddies. I joined the Navy because I committed crimes. I knew that I would. I mean, I knew that I had it in me. Some of us are not that good at being, at savoring. Malingering is conscientious objection. We are all sick. Open admission could prevent war from breaking out. Thank you. Thank you very much for joining me on this Veterans Day. And shout out again to Veterans for Peace. Um, my next poem is entitled Ode to Urban Camping. One thing I have to tell you about is the Smedley Butler is he's like the patriarch of Veterans for Peace, and he was a four-star general, turn of the century, and he uncovered a fascist plot to coup FDR, and he wrote this book called War is a Racket, which should be given to kids in high schools, in Kansas, so they don't join the military. But essentially, at some point in his life, some point late in his career, he realized that he was a patsy for corporations, that he had waged all these wars, and that war is a racket. But he's mentioned in the poem, so I thought I'd give him a shout out. And also, it's about homelessness. And my friend used to tell this joke. It's it went something like uh, did you hear about the fires? It was intense. Get it? It was intense. So I saw the documentary by Ken Burns about the circus and all these circus fires, and I was like, oh my god, that's horrible. That's a horrible thing to tell a joke about. So at some point, I was like, can I reverse this joke and write a poem about the homeless at the same time? And this was my effort. It's entitled "Ode to Urban Camping." Oh, intense fires at circuses. Oh, lives a bit intense. Pounding stakes into the ground. Hoovervilles and tents. Did you hear about the one about Golden Gate boondocking? Sleeping on streets, a political act. Sorry if that cut out. Sleeping on streets, a political act. Nomadic, even. The city before the Gilded Age, while tent powdered hills, white tent powdered hills, teach them to break bread. Oh, lives can get a bit intense. Circus fires singe like Chernobyl. Beware of talk of sanitation, for we come from the dirt. Sleeping on streets like clowns in Showman's Rest. Smiley, Baldy, and four-horse driver. Tense, parabolic. Danger, even. More political symbol than home. Joe Arpaio using tents as tents as L's in the Arizona desert. Even chain gangs had rest. But this is not a blues poem. Oh, lives will get a bit intense. Tabernacle, mobile sacredness. Amnesiac, fetishist dreaming. Camping's cool for concert tickets. Pitch a tent for Black Friday. Boondock on federal land. Lives exist in big tents. Stop. Curling your lip as you walk by. You would be getting high too. Complex performance art, even. Three-fifths of our population didn't feel the depression, but they saw time life images of Hoovervilles. Oh, the fire at the circus, it was intense. Oh, our lives will get a bit intense. Smedley Butler's bonus army, speckled White House lawn, mushrooming green tents, burning flags is protected, even. Dirty hippie, dirty druggie, dirty commie, let their other selves see. Low hanging fruit unwashed by rain. Oh, the fire ate the circuit, it was intense. Oh, free speech inside a tent. So I think, oh, wait, I have two poems, I think. So this is a short one. It's called Northern Virginia McMansions. It's about defense contracting. Crystal City booming, blooming onions. Khaki flush with coronagraphs. Oysters flying in sex on company credit. Piercing, offensive, low belly laughs. Red Lobster changed the industry, flying flash frozen seafood anywhere the ocean isn't. Mudslide happy hour Dionysus. SecOp quality control dialogues. Quarterbacking shadow warfighting. Being unsophisticated by choice. Looks down. Keychain breathalyzer. Wedding gift for friends of the groom. Too drunk to walk. Slurring at waitress, drinking to celebrate NATO contract, Applebee's after midnight fight or fuck, yellow ribbon training war Lancelot, impeachment trials, faces deja vu Lockheed Martin Christmas party. Thank you. And I think I have one last poem. And this will finish it off. And thank you everybody who joined. Once also, the title of this last section that has a lot of protest poems in it is one part of the autopsy, uh, and the story I told at the beginning is another part of the autopsy, and the last part, which kind of acts as a manifesto, is called the reconstitution of the body. Maybe I'll read some from that at a different time. American Autopsy. I wrote this after the Buffalo shooting. Contents of a buffalo's stomach. Black holes, festering hearts eclipsing. Black rainbows, cauldrons of promises. Black asteroid, dripping black sun. Hearts manifest, dark festering vacuum. My father's healthy fear of government. Love and hate mirror neurons, brothers and sisters. Chemical roller derby of arbitrary choosing. This creature pasture bound yesteryear. Tracked curdles memory, hiding behind forms. We can derelict one child, we have two. Hate was a spare, a mulligan, a throwaway. Hate for war, hate for apathy, hate for neglect. You say you're all about love. Can't use hate? You say you have no use for you, no use for thinking meat, ruminating, unmanicured cellulose, speeding trains, stomaching crocodile tears. I bear no arms in this poem, so how was it written? No buffalo were harmed from these cabooses. Favoritism is violence chewing infinity, activating rippling reflections, splash omega. To the autopsy at hand, buffalo effusing, heavy molecular, square roots, elastic collisions, love's viscosity's oppression, ease of words. Pure being is bovine, stomachs dwarfing brains. Gringo love, Pavlovian, never ending Truman show. Internet, intentional malice done in the name of love. Opiating, designing, anaphora of word. A stampede of hooves staggers the ear. Drumming field. This is how we learned war. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. I have dinner to make. So I appreciate your time. Thank you. Have a great night. Happy Veterans Day.